Coming up on Tech News Today, is SOPA back? Lamar Smith is up to his old tricks. We'll tell you what that actually means. Also, DirecTV and Viacom are in a cat fight. And speaking of cats, there's a cat film festival coming. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, July 11th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Ford, featuring the MyFord mobile smartphone app for electric vehicles. The MyFord mobile app makes the electric driving experience fun and efficient. Learn more about Ford electric vehicle technologies at ford.com/technology. And by Gazelle, the easy way to sell your iPhone, iPad, iPod, or Android smartphones from your home or office so you can get the latest versions. Get a risk-free quote that's good for 30 days at gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And we are here to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, put them in context for you. Loyd Case will join us to dig deeper in the discussion section. But first, the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse. If you're excited about Mountain Lion, the forthcoming Mac OS X operating system, and feeling secure because you have a 64-bit capable Mac, you might want to sit down. Or if you're already sitting down, you might want to lie down. Apple has confirmed that some older 64-bit Macs will not be able to run Mountain Lion, and Ars Technica suspects it's due to graphics limitations. The GPUs in question use 32-bit kernel extensions, which are no longer supported under Mountain Lion.
The city of San Francisco will cease buying MacBooks, iMacs, Mac Pros, and other Apple products for its 50 agencies now that Apple has withdrawn its environmentally friendly EPEAT certification. Meanwhile, Apple maintains its products are superior in other important environmental areas not measured by EPEAT, such as removal of toxic materials.
Bad news for users of the Samsung Galaxy S3 on the Sprint network. After a security update, many are complaining that the universal search feature is gone from their phones. A search using the home screen search yields results only from Google on the web, but does not search the phone's data like contacts and apps. Potentially, the update does more than remove universal search. PC World speculates that it could be a preemptive move by Samsung to get around a patent issue it is currently having with Apple related to the Galaxy Nexus.
If you believe IHS iSupply, Google is not selling the Nexus 7 at a loss after all, but it's pretty close. According to IHS iSupply's teardown, the components in the Nexus 7 should cost Google roughly $152 for the 8GB device and $159.25 for the 16GB version. With overhead marketing and other costs, Google's probably about breaking even on the 8GB device and making a small profit on the 16GB. Your move, Amazon.
Facebook just wants you to stop living in fear. And that's why Malware Checkpoint will now direct you to websites where you can download free antivirus software if you think your system has a virus, and recommends Microsoft Security Essentials or McAfee Scan and Repair. Or for Mac users, the Apple Security Updates website is what Facebook will direct you to.
Microsoft posted a security advisory on Tuesday recommending that users of Gadgets and Windows Sidebar on Windows Vista and higher no longer use those applications due to vulnerabilities that could allow for arbitrary code to be run. Microsoft also made available an automated solution that disables both applications.
Hey, remember that Ouya Android-based $99 game console we talked about yesterday? Remember when we wondered if people would want it?
Yeah.
People want it.
A lot.
Forget the $950,000 goal. Ouya has raised around $3 million, and it just keeps rising. Several of their backers' gifts have sold out, and they're now asking backers for ideas what they should do with all that extra money.
No kidding.
Sounds like an Apple problem. Google Plus for iPad hit the App Store yesterday. It's a big improvement for iOS users who previously either had to run the iPhone app on the iPad or hit the mobile Google Plus website. Google for iPad is similar to the app that Android tablets got back in June and supports Google Hangouts.
Immediately, our chat room is like, I'll take the money. If they don't know what to do with it, they can send it to me.
I could really put it to good use.
Kim.com's extradition trial for copyright infringement may have been delayed until March 2013, but the man is willing to leave New Zealand and come to the United States voluntarily just to help speed up the trial. There are a few conditions, however. .com spelled these out on Twitter. He wants bail, funds unfrozen for lawyers and living expenses, and probably a blow-up tank. I'm just guessing.
We know that sales bans can stop consumers from getting toys in their hands, but the Senate Judiciary Committee wants to know what antitrust concerns are brought up when a standard essential patent is used to bring about that ban. The committee will meet tomorrow. In other patent news, Motorola and Microsoft have called a temporary ceasefire to some of their patent disputes while a U.S. court first handles their FRAND license dispute related to video codecs and Wi-Fi.
Why can't we be friends?
Oh.
Take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Ford, featuring the My Ford mobile smartphone app for electric vehicles. With the My Ford mobile app, if you've got one of their electric cars, like the Ford Focus Electric, you can take advantage of value charging features to save you money. You can win games. And you can have a more comfortable ride. The value charging feature is powered by Microsoft based on your local utility's participation and allows Ford customers to take advantage of off-peak or reduced rates from their utility. So your car gets all charged up, but you're doing it at the time that saves you the most money. You can also use go times that precondition your vehicle's temperature, make it either just right, hot, cool, whatever you need before your departure. That saves you battery energy. You're not wasting a lot of time cooling or heating your car. And you can monitor your charging, get alerts, find charging stations, plan out your drive. And they even have a little gamification. My Ford mobile website has gaming features like leaderboards, unique achievements, available to drivers of Ford electric and plug-in hybrid. You can compare who's saving the most gas, who's keeping the most CO2 out of the atmosphere. The My Ford mobile app makes the electric driving experience fun and efficient. The 2012 Ford Focus Electric is available for purchase right now, and you can learn more about that and Ford electric vehicle technologies at ford.com/technology. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Now, let's bring in Loyd Case from PC World. I think last time we talked to you, you just gotten the job at PC World. So how are things going over there?
It's going pretty well. I mean, I'm sort of in charge of all the reviews of PC hardware right now. And that's starting to ramp up. We're getting lots of Ultrabooks in, since it's sort of the Ivy Bridge generation, as well as desktop systems.
That's cool. I've been keeping an eye on it. You're doing some great stuff over there. We're going to start, though, with, we don't have a lot of PC news in there today, but there's some interesting stuff, starting with DirecTV and Viacom now getting in a fight.
Yeah, this is one of those stories where you hear both sides and you just think that everybody sounds like a big old jerk and that consumers are going to lose. The story is that Viacom has pulled 26 channels off of DirecTV following a dispute over what do you think it's about? It's about money, of course, but these are big channels. If you're a DirecTV user, you right now do not have access to Viacom channels such as MTV, BET, Comedy Central, Spike, VH1, Nickelodeon, to name a few. Now, of course, both sides say, either Viacom says, we just want a little bit more money, pennies per day per user. DirecTV has, 20 million users or so? DirecTV says, you know what that is annually? That's like $1 billion that we're not paying for right now. So it's basically a matter of DirecTV says, you're asking for too much. Viacom says, we're not really asking for too much. Hey, you're DirecTV. You're going for record earnings this year. So depending on how you feel about both companies, you may fall on one side or the other, but the story is that consumers just don't have access to these channels right now. They both companies have put forth pretty impressive online campaigns detailing this is why we're not the bad guys. Viacom in particular have put together, Spike TV put together a Hulk Hogan pleading with Spike users to get Impact Wrestling back on DirecTV, basically in his Hulk Hogan way, saying, isn't this awful? Here's the number you call. He's not really asking, he's actually demanding.
Yeah, he might beat you up if you don't.
From MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, VH1, and BET.
Don't play too much of it. Viacom will send a takedown.
Exactly. To its credit, DirecTV is also saying, listen, Viacom is trying to bully us, and we're not standing down, so this is what happens. Please call Viacom and let them know that what they're doing is unruly.
DirecTV saying that, not Sarah.
DirecTV.
Isn't this kind of a semi-annual event? I mean, this happens with Dish Network, this happens with cable, this happens with DirecTV. I mean, it happens over and over again, doesn't it?
It seems to be getting worse. There's always an event of a carriage dispute of some kind between a cable company and either a local channel or a national network, and usually they get to the brink of dropping and then they work it out. But Dish dropped AMC, and DirecTV now dropped Viacom. Now Dish and DirecTV will say, no, we didn't drop anything. We were prevented from carrying them.
Sure.
So nobody's right in this situation. But I think the internet is putting extra pressure to both sides not to give in, and it's causing the consumers to lose. And the other thing it's causing the consumers to do is find other ways to get the programming. In fact, DirecTV is telling users you can go to Hulu, you can go to the Comedy Central websites to watch the shows you're missing.
They're also putting together what's kind of a lame Band-Aid, but basically, hey, if you go to Nickelodeon, for example, DirecTV will say, well, listen, in the Nickelodeon slot, we don't have that right now, but you'll see alternative choices like the Disney Channel or ABC Family or Cartoon Network. So they're trying their best to keep people as happy as possible. But obviously, if you've got a kid or maybe you're an adult who really likes Nickelodeon, I'm not going to judge you. That's what you want. You don't want an alternative. And it's really a game of chicken, right? It's DirecTV and Viacom both saying, we'll take this all the way. So now that
Well,
they
did.
have.
Yeah, the cars have crashed. Now what do you do?
Yeah, and I think it's almost like both sides go, let's kind of see where the public anger goes. And then maybe DirecTV has to say, okay, we'll give you 1 penny more per day per user for the 20 million users type of a thing. But yeah, it's consumers lose as usual.
I really like the DirecTV site. I mean, explaining to you where you can go online for free things. I mean, to find these things on the actual sites like Spike or MTV or Nickelodeon, they all have different interfaces anyway. It's almost like they're acting like Clicker because you have a directory. It has a nice drop-down menu. Select your network, select the show you want to watch, and it has links. I'm like, it's not too bad. Maybe they should just have that all the time. But, I mean, if they keep having these disputes, the real problem is that Viacom wants to bundle everything together, right? You can't just go, look, DirecTV can't say, we just want to buy Spike, or we just want to buy
Well, that's
MTV.
true of all. That's not just Viacom.
Right.
All networks.
And because of that bundling thing, when there's one dispute, you lose a ton of channels, and that's kind of it's very disruptive because you're like, well, that's why I have cable or why I have Dish or DirecTV. Right. It'd be nice if this actually keeps happening. Then these companies have to figure out other ways to do this, and if they want to go direct and go with an internet-based download only or streaming their own stuff, maybe
they did
that's
that.
What they have
It was
to do.
called Hulu. And they just don't have the boldness to like push it all the way. But that's exactly what the networks did in reaction to YouTube. They said, aha, we'll do this.
Right. In this sort of fight between a la carte and bundling, I mean, at some point it's going to become like a virtual a la carte. People go to the internet, smart TVs will have the stuff embedded in it, and they won't have to pay the bundling costs.
You know what I would like to see? I would like to see enough consumers say, okay, DirecTV and Viacom, you guys are fighting, someone will win, okay, that's between you. In the meantime, we'd like to pay a fewer dollars per month for our DirecTV subscription where we don't get 5 of our favorite channels. Or 26 if you happen to watch a lot of TV. I mean, if I was a DirecTV customer, I love Comedy Central because I watch Colbert almost every night. I would be livid about something like this because I lose for no reason. I'm still paying the same amount of money.
Well, that's why Viacom picked up Hulk Hogan. This will be fine. Don't worry about it. Hulk Hogan is making everything okay.
We don't get Hulk Hogan either, though. That's Spike.
But he'll tell everybody to make sure you call him.
Oh, I see. We should just trust Hulk.
I was amused that Viacom is involved in this because they sued YouTube rather than doing what the other networks did and cooperating and figuring out how to monetize. They're still suing YouTube. They pulled out of Hulu. They did change their mind on that, and they're back on Hulu now. And now they've pulled out of DirecTV or been forced off DirecTV, depending on who you believe. But it seems to be Viacom's mode of operation to deny users the programming as a leveraging chip, as a bargaining chip, anytime they want. Let's talk about some hardware. What's going on? We've got another little cluster of Android issues going on right now.
Yeah, I was looking at these stories just because I wanted to get a Galaxy S3, and now I have to basically think about which carrier lets me do what thing. One of the stories up today was Samsung is offering a $600 version of the Galaxy S3, calling it the Developer Edition, and this device allows you, this device doesn't have a locked bootloader. If you get a Galaxy S3 on any other carrier, you pay $200 and you have an unlocked bootloader. So there's like a $300 premium if you want to get the Verizon version. So that seems a little strange. The S3 also got an update, like I said in the news views. Security update changed how universal search worked. So you lost a feature that you had before.
No, what did they change?
Okay, so when you would do a search on the start screen, it no longer searches the phone's content. So if you're looking for like an app on your phone, that's not going to show up there.
Or a contact or anything
like that. It's just going to be a Google web search. I believe the voice search still works for that. But there's a fix for that, apparently.
Yeah, I just found it in the forums of Android Central. It's basically reinstalling the old APK. You know, Android, the Android community is very crafty and very quick at finding fixes for this stuff. It just kind of sucks that you have to do that. You know?
I guess my real question is, what's going on with this? Is this like just a giant mess, or is this just a really hot phone so people are really paying attention to what's going on with the S3? Because, I mean, there are a lot of, this is almost like PCs. I mean, there are PCs that can't run certain things. These are PCs at this point, but there's this like stink of like the carriers putting their hands in it and messing with the operating system and the hardware, such that you have to really seriously think about it, as opposed to when you'd buy the good old days, you'd buy a PC, did what you want with it. I mean, is this just a bigger mess that is it being blown out of proportion, I guess?
Well, I hear you laughing. It sounds like this is a familiar problem.
This part of this has to do with IP issues, of course, in response to, I don't know if you read the news a few days ago, but they said they're going to issue a patch for this very thing regarding, and it was to address IP issues relative to the Apple lawsuit, I think.
Yeah, for the Galaxy Nexus.
Right.
And they have started issuing those patched, or re-downloading those Jelly Bean.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think the analogy to the PC is very apt, because Android is very fragmented, like the early days of Windows. If you remember, the PC wasn't pristine, this pristine thing you could do anything with, because you'd buy one from Dell or HP and we loaded up with custom crapware and custom interfaces sometimes that it wouldn't behave like Windows. So,
oh, God, the HP Pavilion interface in 1996 was awful. It was absolutely awful.
This is just like that. However, carriers have more power, of course, than the vendors did back in the PC days. And I think that I was lamenting the fact that the U.S. carriers aren't like the overseas carriers, where you don't have to deal with a lot of this stuff. You can just run any phone on any network, however you want it.
Jason, do you think the only way to go is to go with the Nexus brand? I mean, because it seems like the only thing that's not being mucked about, well, theoretically, is the thing that Google's working on directly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that depends on who you are, by and large. As I would say, a more informed, maybe Android fan than somebody who's just going into a store and going, I don't know, I want a good phone. I would prefer a Galaxy Nexus or a Nexus branded device, because I appreciate and understand kind of the vanilla approach. But, you know, the average person that walks into the store to buy a phone might not necessarily care. There are a lot of people that get Android phones that are okay with the fact that it's a version or two behind. Whether that's right or wrong is a different story, but a lot of people don't seem to care. And as far as the developer edition phone, it's not the first time that this has happened. The Motorola Razr had a developer edition that they also did on the Verizon network. Now, again, whether that's right or wrong that they don't just do that to the initial device, I mean, that could be a carrier requirement of Verizon saying, we won't subsidize something that you're saying is a truly open bootloader. That could be Verizon's fault.
I'm hoping one day we get like the equivalent of like Main Gear or Alienware or Voodoo, where they're like, okay, look, we know you want to mess with your hardware. You can even upgrade it. That'd be crazy if you could upgrade the hardware on your phones. But like, when is something like this going to happen? I mean, this is coming to a head at this point, because you have serious competition out there, and if these devices start become annoyances, because if you're a geek and go, hey, look, Tom, don't buy that phone because you're not going to be able to do this, that, and the other thing, and you're starting to tell all your other friends not to do this, it starts changing the perception of the way these phones work.
On the other hand, I think it was right about most people not caring, because a lot of Android phones are now heavily subsidized, and they're really about the cheapest smartphones you can get. A lot of people just use them as phones, and they never even care about a lot of the smart features or connect to the internet or any of that stuff. Yes, so that it may not be an issue to them at all.
City of San Francisco is going to have to get used to this issue. They've decided not to buy any Apple products. This is in relation to the story we had a couple days ago about Apple pulling all of their products from the environmental registry called EPEAT.
Yeah, that's right. So these are officials from San Francisco's Department of Environment who did confirm to the Wall Street Journal that the city was not going to be buying anything that was initially on the EPEAT list, which is now not, which Apple voluntarily pulled because this is a voluntary certification that they were previously a part of that covered MacBooks, iMacs, Mac Pros, the sorts of things that city government agencies would buy. Now, of course, things like iPads, iPhones, not covered, but they were never under the certification anyway, so they're sort of a separate issue, although one might argue many city employees are probably using those because they happen more and more in the workplace anyway. So I don't know how many employees are actually going to be personally affected by this or switching to Windows or something like that.
They may have to use Windows at work, or the new computers that they buy won't.
Exactly.
They won't buy spend any money with Apple.
Yeah. So that when I first read the story, I went, "Oh yeah, San Francisco, a city that in many ways prides itself on being very green and sort of touting that part of our way of life." I live there, so I'm including myself in that. But Ars Technica says people that are familiar with how city government works say, listen, this is going to cover a tiny percentage of municipal PC purchases, for example. Very few of them are even Macs. The number of governments that require 100% EP compliance is also pretty small. So this is the sort of thing where Apple's not stupid. It's not like all government employees across the nation will now cease to buy Macs, and all of a sudden they're like, we've lost $4 billion a year. They know that this is probably not going to impact them because that's the sort of thing that Apple would do the numbers for.
And they've responded, too.
They have responded, and they said, listen, EPEAT is an outdated certification model. EPEAT actually has said as much in the last couple of months. Listen, as products are made differently, we have the issue of size to contend with, portability, weight. That's all stuff where Apple, for example, and many other companies are putting together products that don't actually work with the way that the certification was written quite a long time ago.
The wheels of government bureaucracy don't move as fast as technology.
Can you believe it?
I know, it's surprising.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Apple also says, listen, we have an environmental page. It's actually at apple.com/environment, where we write down environmental impact of all of our products. We meet the strictest energy efficiency standards backed by the U.S. government Energy Star 5.2. And EPEAT is just one certification where we just don't feel is really relevant to the direction we're going in. So you take all of this information, and I think on one hand I say, obviously Apple cares more about design than it does about meeting all environmental standards. That, to me, is not necessarily a step in the right direction. But if EPEAT is something that is outdated, antiquated, dinosaur model, then that's something that just needs to be rewritten from the ground up. I don't see this being Apple doesn't care about the environment, because clearly they do take steps to inform their customers of what they're actually doing that is environmentally friendly, and more so than their competitors.
Does Apple have a responsibility to help refine these standards or create a new standard that's not just for them?
I think they do if they still want to be seen as a company that has good conscience. And they've made strides to do that in the past. That's something that, I mean, whether or not you think that Apple is the most ethical company out there, they have in the past wanted to put forth the perception that they are.
Well, questionable ethics could get them what they want, I guess. I mean, like you saw the way Apple bullied carriers into doing what they wanted to do. Their phone was something that, again, didn't have the same branding, crapware on it at all, because they were pretty rough with the carriers to the point where carriers didn't want to deal with them. If they can do the same thing to the U.S. government, I'd be pretty surprised. They'd go, hey, listen, you got to redo your standards because we don't like the way you do your standards. Do ours because our page is nicer than yours. I mean, it'd be an interesting idea if they could do it, but I think if any company could throw around, they have some extra money sitting around, lobbying money. I think they probably could get it done.
Lloyd, what's your take on this?
Well, one thing I want to note is that you're talking about the loop saying that Dell PCs aren't even Energy Star compliant. In fact, most Dell business PCs are. So I think it's just not called out very well on Dell's website. But at any rate, I think my take on this is that I agree that the EPEAT standard probably needs some revisions. But that's one of the reasons I think that smartphones aren't on the part of the standard is because they weren't envisioned originally. And of course, no smartphone is built to be easily disassembled. I mean, if you've ever tried to take one apart. So I think there's some work that needs to be done on the standard. By the same token, Apple could have taken an approach saying, well, we understand this, and we're going to go forward working to revise the standard as opposed to simply saying, goodbye, we're pulling out because we're Apple.
All right, let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Gazelle. They actually do responsible recycling themselves, and if you want to get new gadgets, you might want to get rid of your old gadgets and get some cash for them. One of the quickest and easiest ways to get good money for your old gadgets is to sell them on Gazelle. Your used iPhone, your iPad, your iPod, your Mac, your Android smartphone. You can go to Gazelle, type in the product that you have, tell them what condition it's in, what cables you have. They'll give you a quote that is locked in for 30 days. So don't delay. Go lock in the quote now and then decide if you want to send it. They make it really easy to send it. You can print out a mailing label. You drop it in a box, put that label off, drop it off at the place, and you will be getting your cash quick. They'll pay you by check. They'll pay you by PayPal. Amazon gift certificate actually gives you 5% more than your quote. So don't delay. Go try it right now. I've made a nice, easy money. An easy amount of money this summer by cleaning out the garage, getting rid of some old gadgets, and selling them to Gazelle. They just make it super simple. So go there, Gazelle, GAZELLE.com. Don't delay, because gadgets don't get more valuable over time. Lock in that quote while you can, and then you'll find out how easy it is to get some cash to pay for your new gadgets. Visit Gazelle.com for your risk-free quote today. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. Our subreddit is alive with people worried that SOPA is back. Representative Lamar Smith, along with several others, has introduced the Intellectual Property Attaché Act, which seeks to create officers who will see that all U.S. trade negotiations include copyright provisions, which would then, as trade negotiations do, get harmonized back with domestic law. The new agents would be removed from the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, where some similar types of agents already exist, and be placed in a new agency that would be created under a new cabinet position, the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property. The worry is that historically, these type of agents do not promote fair use. They do not promote user rights. They are maximalists. That's a term for people who want to increase copyright protection without any kind of consideration of whether that is sensible or whether that helps. They just want to push to create as much copyright protection as possible. House Judiciary Committee Lamar Smith is joined by Representatives Bob Goodlatte, Mel Watt, Darrell Issa, Howard Berman, Howard Coble, Steve Chabot, Jason Chaffetz, and Adam Schiff. And one of the reactions to this was that it was introduced without a whole lot of fanfare. A lot of people didn't get to see the bill before it went right to committee for markup. And people worried that Lamar Smith was up to his old tricks and trying to railroad through a bill without a lot of public comment. So, of course, Gigi Stone, Public Knowledge, has already written a letter objecting to the process, objecting to the bill. Darrell Issa was an anti-SOPA congressman. He has signed on to supporting this bill. However, he told TechCrunch, we expect that an amendment will be made to the legislation before it is marked up that will instruct the attachés to promote clear IP exceptions like fair use that are already codified in U.S. law. So he may be trying to sign up to make sure that it is crafted carefully. My question is, do we think we need another cabinet-level position, another copyright czar, to protect intellectual property rights overseas? Obviously, the industry does think that.
It's like where to start on this one. Okay, so we have...
Loyd, go ahead.
I thought the Republicans were against creating new bureaucracies. Am I missing something somewhere here?
Well, this is bipartisan, so we don't want to make it a partisan issue. There's Republicans and Democrats on this committee. It's sort of everybody is on the side of promoting jobs creation, and that's the buzzword they're using with this bill.
I'm not buying it.
Okay, so I saw these stories this morning, and immediately once you compare it to SOPA, immediately people freak out, which is always a great idea. If you want people to pay attention to something, you write SOPA on it. I haven't read this bill entirely, so I'm obviously very curious.
I read it this morning.
If Representative Issa is on board with this, and he's going to try to help craft fair use exceptions, because he stopped SOPA and stopped what was one before? It was a PIPA. He's filibustered a lot of these things himself. If he's on board
with the help of
well, he was like the lead
millions
guy.
of people on the internet.
Well, I mean, like, but in Congress, he was one of the guys.
And other Congress people.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. And I want to make sure that this thing is what people are screaming it is.
It is.
About.
It depends on what you mean by screaming about. It is a bill that creates attachés, takes them out of the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, and puts them under a new position and places them in foreign embassies with the purpose of promoting intellectual property protection, to promote a level playing field for American innovators abroad and American job creation by improving the intellectual property attaché program and coordinating and aligning intellectual property policy with compelling economic interests of the United States and freedom. By the way, I don't know why you throw "and freedom" at the end of that.
Well, because I don't know. People
because
love
also
that word.
kids and hot dogs.
Right, we got to save the children.
Yeah.
That's really broad stuff, and that's the problem that SOPA had. It's the problem that all of these potential bills have, is that the wording is so broad that you go, yeah, okay, you read it, and it's not designed to seem evil, but it's too broad. It's going to encompass way too much, and personal freedom.
By the way, that wasn't
talking
the whole,
about freedom.
That wasn't the whole bill that I read. That was the preamble.
That's part of the bill.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing where you go, well, wait a second. What specifically are we talking about here? Because you're just talking about sunshine and rainbows.
And that's always the problem with bills. It's not what they say usually, it's what they don't say.
Yeah.
And what this says, there's no objection to what it says, which is let's make sure that our intellectual property is protected. I think everybody is okay with that. But the question is, what are the limits on that? And what everyone fears is this bill does nothing to stop a copyright maximalist from going overseas and pushing for treaties like ACTA that expand copyright protection, and then you get the U.S. Trade Office to sign off on that treaty, and then it has to be harmonized with U.S. law, and it changes U.S. law to be more copyright protection without the protection of fair use, without exemptions, without having a debate about sensible copyright. Frankly, I come to this with the idea that we probably have enough copyright protection as it is. I'm not certain that we need more copyright protection in this country. However, that is not true in other countries. And so I don't think that it's a bad idea to create a vehicle where we can help make more sensible copyright protection in other countries. But that's not what this is talking about. This is not talking about let's make more sensible copyright protection. Let's make copyright protection that allows for the most innovation and creative use. None of that is in here. What it says is let's promote economic interests. And those economic interests are usually the industry. Why are you shaking your head?
I just don't think it's always that black and white when it comes to IP law in general. But I mean, like China is a great example of this. They don't necessarily respect United States intellectual property laws, and it's not just about software or movies. It's also about the book industry. There's a whole lot of industries that are affected by this. It's not like, I know we always want to go MPAA, RIAA. Yeah, those guys have done a great job, showing how great they are as a public association. But there are actual other industries and independent content providers who want to make sure that their material isn't just taken and bandied about all the time. Because this was a huge issue years ago with Russia because they wouldn't respect any of the rights.
Here's the problem with that, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but we jump right over the harm, always. We assume, oh, it's being bandied about and there's harm. And there probably is. I'm not saying there isn't. But let's diagnose what the actual harm is and create policy that remedies that. We just say there's lots of harm. There's lots of infringement.
I don't disagree with the harm element. My issue is simply that when you create something, you are granted rights in those things. And if somebody else is taking them away from you, you should get a right to be upset about it because you made the thing.
But this isn't about that. This is about what the rights should be. What protections should you have? And they're saying we should increase the rights no matter what. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if it says increase the rights. If they want to have laws that are
the bill itself does it, but it could lead to that.
Well, a lot of things could lead to. That's why I don't want to go. The sky is falling just yet.
That's why it's poorly written law because it leaves
that I agree with.
Wide open.
Broad laws are dangerous.
Yeah,
that's the simplest thing I could say.
Do you think the timing of this is interesting now because the Sun Valley conference is going on and all the tech people and all the media people are talking to each other about the failures of SOPA?
That's an interesting thought. Tell me more about the Sun Valley conference.
So I was reading about this in the New York Times a couple days ago, and in fact, so they have this annual conference in Sun Valley, and media is generally not invited. They sort of have these high-level talks between tech and media industries. And one of the things noted in the Times article is that the media industry is a little bit sort of sheepish about what happened to SOPA and wants to work with the tech industry to come up with something more and user-friendly in the long run, and because of course Google and Microsoft and all those guys were against it originally. So I think it could be an interesting. The legislation is in its very early stages, so what comes out of this conference may have an impact on what that law eventually looks like.
Yeah, it could be a little pressure to be applied. That's a good point. All right, we should move on. We got a couple more stories to talk about. First of all, Netflix has some details coming out about what happened last year with Quickster and the price change and all of that.
This is a great article at CNET. They had an inside look what happened to Netflix. It's been about a year since that whole, hey, we're going to split into two companies. No, we're not kind of thing that happened. Everyone remembers Quickster, right? It's such a catchy name that we.
So 2011.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So the inside story was that CNET got some interviews with people who refused to give their names. They wanted to find out what exactly happened. Well, how did this come to be? It turns out that Reed Hastings effectively stopped listening to everybody. So
he went rogue.
Effectively, yeah, that's what's been going on. He has a lot of power in this kind of scenario. And there was a meeting in March. He just walks in and has this idea. Hey, how about we split the company up? And everyone's like, oh, it's an interesting idea. They leave. 3 days later, he offers a CEO position of Quickster to somebody else. So the board just thought, hey, you were just throwing an idea out.
Right?
Nope. Then Reed Hastings wants to announce the big deal. So they're like, okay, why don't we get like a professional video crew? If you guys remember this video, it's pretty awkward. It's like in a courtyard. It's like, why are they just hanging out talking about major decisions with the company? Turns out people were telling Reed Hastings, don't do it this way. How about we have a professional video crew, have a Netflix branding, maybe have a press release, all kinds of things like that. He's like, no, we don't want to do that either. We're doing it my way. So basically, it was Reed Hastings going kind of nuts because he has a lot of power. And that was a year ago.
Well, wait a minute. Was he really going nuts because he had a lot of power?
His vision was simple, right? He goes, the future is streaming. And he wanted to push that as fast as he could, even though DVD was still making the money. And on top of that,
he's the guy in charge. That's what everybody praises Steve Jobs for, is he just went and did what he wanted.
And Netflix was on such an upward trajectory at that point. I mean, they were making a lot of money. They were seeing new subscriptions every day. It was like streaming is the future. I mean, I think at least in a long-term aspect, we all agree on that. So he was being bold.
In the
just
company, because DVDs made Netflix to start with, right? That's what they were when they started, before they had all the streaming video. The DVD team was kind of separated out. They weren't allowed into Netflix meetings. So basically, morale started falling apart. Just all kinds of high-level executives started leaving. The guy who was supposed to be the CEO of Quickster had left in February, actually, this year. So, I mean, has Netflix recovered from this? Did we all forget about this? Does everyone still love them like they used to?
I think so. I mean, they're signing up people at record numbers. They had, was it 1 billion streams or something? We talked about it on Frame Rate. I mean,
a couple months after
to have passed away.
Quickster went away, I think we all sat here and said, in 6 months, no one's even going to remember that. Or if they do, it'll be like that distant, funny memory. Remember, I don't even remember that detail. It was something weird that Netflix did. They had a weird month back in 2011.
Loyd, do you think the reason why we're all kind of, I guess, forgiving Netflix or letting it go?
1 billion minutes in June. Thank you, Mr.
letting it go is because no serious competitor came up during this screw-up time. Netflix had this opportunity. Every competitor had an opportunity, and they seem to have blown it.
Yes, I agree with that. And in fact, it was a perfect opportunity for Dish Network with their acquisition of Blockbuster to really kind of stepped up and done something bold, but they didn't do anything, as near as I can tell.
All right, let's finish up with the first photo ever posted on the web. Motherboard, which is a New York tech mag, has a story up about how in July 1992, actually July 18th, so coming up in a week, we'll celebrate the anniversary, Silvano De Gennaro, an IT developer at CERN, took a picture on his Canon EOS 650 of the physics song group Les Horribles Cernettes. You could probably say this better than me now, after I've been in France for a couple of weeks.
You would think.
But no.
No.
Okay.
French is tough.
They do this, and we've seen the rap video out of the Large Hadron Collider. They have music groups at CERN because they're physicists, but they have another side to them. It was taken at the Hardronic Music Festival, an annual rock festival held at a music club within the Geneva-based laboratory. He was going to make it for a CD. Later on, De Gennaro, who took the picture, started experimenting with Photoshop and a scanned GIF of the photo. Tim Berners-Lee was talking to him and said, hey, you know what? I need a photo that is small and compressed that I can try to put up on my new World Wide Web experiment. And De Gennaro said, yeah, sure, take this. So Berners-Lee gave the GIF to Jean-Francois Groff, a programmer on the project, who changed the background to help the compression, made it this kind of horrible sky blue, and then uploaded it to the web, and it is now history. The first photo ever to be uploaded to the web. Colette Marks-Nielsen, who's second from the right in the picture, says nobody's impressed. She says, I kind of put it out there sometimes and say I'm in the first photograph on the World Wide Web, but people don't really care. What
I'm impressed about is if you look at that picture, obviously it's French, so I think without any context at all, I don't know, looks like this picture was taken long time ago. The hairstyles are a little bit different, maybe a French or Canadian group. I don't know what that is. But there's actually a really cool story behind it. A physics song group?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
In fact, they're having their final performance this Saturday.
Great.
You can go
hope it
search for
sells
them on
out.
YouTube. They've got tons of videos.
Wonderful. Well, maybe they'll go back on tour. Take the back on the road.
Maybe this will be the boost they need not to shut down the band.
That's right.
Of course,
That's right.
the members have changed over the years. It's not all the same original 4, too. I like them before they sold out and went on the web.
I can see where some people would say, first photograph on the internet.
Whatever.
That's okay.
It kind of harkened to the days of MySpace, don't you think? MySpace and all the bad art that you end up seeing.
A lot of people pointed out it's bad Photoshop.
Yes.
With all apologies. It looks like bad Photoshop.
Good
it was probably
gloves,
great
though.
Photoshop for the day. And it's women posing. I mean, it's kind of classic web photography.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's move on to, if that wasn't the randomizer, this is the randomizer.
Randomizer.
This is all you, Sarah Lane. BBC reports a cat video film festival will be put on to celebrate the web's furriest virals. That's the headline from BBC.
That's true.
The Internet Cat Video Film Festival set to take place August 30th in Minneapolis. Going?
Well, I'd
Should
like
you
to.
report live?
May I have some time off to attend this festival?
You
This
just had
is
3
one of
weeks.
the best things I've ever. Why is this not actually already an annual event with millions of this could be like the next Comic-Con.
This is like
Cat
every
Video Fest.
This is every day on the internet. I don't know if you
Exactly.
need. I don't know if you need to have
that's-
it once a year. It's
that's-
every freaking day.
That's
There's
why
an
we need a
animated GIF of a
festival.
cat.
We need a Best in Show.
Do we?
We need.
I think there should be a cat calendar.
There are so many categories
Right.
we could go.
Categories?
With this. Categories. I didn't even do that on purpose.
Categories.
It's just
Wow.
happening organically.
You know, a
Yeah, I'm
dog
into
was the
this.
most viewed YouTube clip on the UK last year. Just saying.
Well, that was last year. Live in the now. No, this is hey, cat videos. It's a part of the internet. People,
See,
most
if
people.
they were in the
anyway,
first photo on the internet,
love
people would
cat
be like
videos.
freaking out, excited, but they weren't. It was just women.
Cats do funny things. You capture that funny thing, and maybe you'll win a prize in Minneapolis.
Well, we'll put that on the calendar. But in the meantime, what else is on the calendar?
The real stuff. Android 4.1 Jelly Bean has been rolling out to HSPA Plus Galaxy Nexus owners. The new OS is going to be coming in the next few days. Over-the-air update, bringing Google Now, improved keyboard, a few other really cool features. ISPs are set to clamp down on what the RIAA calls more pirating starting tomorrow the 12th. So customers who are accused of piracy get 1 or 2 educational notices, supposed to make them say, hey, what I'm doing is illegal and wrong. If they're ignored, customers then receive reminders that they're doing something wrong. Eventually, could see their connections throttled or even suspended. And finally, T-Mobile, MyTouch and MyTouch Q are coming out August 8th for $50. And Gadget has a nice hands-on if you want to know more about it.
All right. Good stuff. And we move on to incoming.
Incoming message.
Start with a voicemail from someone who's very excited about that new $99 game console.
Hey guys, I was thinking some more about this whole Ouya console that now is funded, and I realized that it might be what everybody was already asking for. Everybody was saying, "Hey, take Apple TV and just add a controller onto it. You have a gaming console." Well, I have an Acer Revo micro PC that I could put under my TV, and it's kind of a pain to use. With this console, I could theoretically get an Android application that can stream any sort of video from any source, any codec, and I can also play games, and I'm not limited to touchscreen games. I have a full controller for it and everything. So, the more I think about it, the more sense it actually seems to make, not just as a gaming console, but as a full PC, a full home theater PC that you can just use for practically anything on your TV. Anyway, I'm excited to see it get funded. Hopefully, lives up to that potential.
He's not alone.
And now Ouya is operating the store where you get the apps to put on it. So they could decide not to do that, but I think that'd be silly. I think they should absolutely have a category for that. I think it's brilliant.
I do too.
On to the emails. Ben writes in and says, regarding the comment on the iPad lacks originality, that was in an email yesterday. He says, I think you'll find that quote that the emailer quoted came from Samsung PR, which was posted on a number of sites as opposed to the actual statement from the courts. The courts said it's not as cool. And in fact, I had that quote open.
Right.
Let me see if I can find it again, what the actual court said.
The court said
The court said they
Quite a
are
few
not
things.
as cool. The overall impression produced is different, referring to the Samsung products. Samsung PR put out, the court said it lacked original design because they didn't like the court saying.
The funny thing about it is like because Samsung is less cool, they actually win. So it's good to be less cool in this situation. It's just a sort of a stinging comment, I guess. All right, next email from Nate Langson. Hey, Nate, I know you. He says, just as a footnote to the massive Windows 8 tablet story on Tuesday's show this week, Microsoft's definitely planning on selling those huge things to businesses. Microsoft told me firsthand when I was at Redmond a few weeks back. He also links to a wired.co.uk article that we'll put in our show notes. A little more information about what he saw there.
Can we
Written
trust
by
this
Nate Langson,
Can we,
by the
can we trust this Nate Langson? He's just showing up on a blog at Wired.
I think so. I also read that
Seems to be a pretty stand-up guy.
they see the Perceptive Pixel stuff as whiteboard replacements. So for executive offices or conference rooms where you want to have a niftier, cooler whiteboard and something where if you're writing up your whiteboard notes, you don't have to take a picture of it to take the notes. You could just actually have some character recognition and send the notes by email.
What will the whiteboard manufacturers do?
Got to connect.
They'll compete on price.
You can have like 80,000 square feet of whiteboard, or you could have one Perceptive
Lloyd,
Pixel.
before we let you go and end the show, I want to know if you have any thoughts on that Perceptive Pixel acquisition from Microsoft.
Well, I think it's also solidifies their IP, right, on this whole topic of multi-touch. That's the big deal about that. As far as the big whiteboard thing, I want one of those big transparent video whiteboards that you see in all the science fiction movies. That's what I want.
Oh, yeah, where it's just floating in space. And
right, where we can go on either side of it and use it.
Yeah, very Minority Report. I want that too. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks for everyone who submitted stories on our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. That's where you go to let us know what kinds of stories you would like us to talk about each and every day on the show. We take a look at it, technewstoday.reddit.com. Vote on stories, even if you don't have time to submit. Vote them up or down and let us know what you think. Lloyd Case, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
What's going on at PC World?
Well, we got lots of stuff happening right now. There's some interest. Of course, we've been covering the news that we talked about a little bit today. Some collaboration stories. I'm working on an article right now that'll run next week on what you need when you're building a PC for digital photography, or when you're buying one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that'll be a good one, I think, for people who are looking, who are digital photographers, serious photographers.
Good stuff.
Yep.
All right, thank you all for watching. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. You can give us a call and leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Owen Rankin from British Tech Mac and the British Tech Network joins us tomorrow. We'll see you then.